Thomas often gets looked down upon in some circles, and he has this nickname, Doubting Thomas, as though it's a bad thing. But Thomas is one of my favorites. He is somebody that I get. Frederick Buechner wrote these words: "Whether your faith is that there is a God or that there is not a God, if you don't have any doubts, you are either kidding yourself or asleep. Doubts are the ants in the pants of faith. They keep it awake and moving." I love that. Perhaps you're kidding yourself, or perhaps you're asleep. If not, you probably have known doubt at some point in your life, and they are the ants in the pants of faith. They keep it sort of alive and moving. So perhaps you too identify with Thomas. I want to see for myself. The rest of you all got to see Jesus with your own eyes. So until I can see, nope, not gonna believe it. Y'all are in cahoots, I'm sure of it. So I'm guessing I'm not alone in identifying with Doubting Thomas, because Doubting Thomas is thinking with his head, right? And head logic would say, nope, Jesus is dead. No way that you all saw him. Head logic says you must all be telling a tall tale. It can't be true. But Thomas gets an answer to head logic. According to the story, Thomas sees Jesus. He's able to put his hands into Jesus' hands wounds and his wound in the side. But we sit here some 2,000 years later, and it is entirely possible that our head doubt is all kinds of real. And no amount of sort of mental gymnastics is going to help us work this out in our heads. But consider what Buechner goes on to say. He says there are two principal kinds of doubt, one of the head and the other of the stomach. In my head, there is almost nothing I can't doubt. The divinity of Christ, the efficacy of the sacraments, the significance of the church, the existence of God. Friends, if we entirely sit in our heads, doubt is easy. But what if we move to our stomach? So let's think about Thomas again. In this story, twice we hear Jesus say, "Peace be with you." So what is Jesus doing and saying here? Have you ever had an experience where panic and worry are sort of all around you, and then a sense of peace washes over you? Something happens in your stomach or your gut. The risen Christ, or God, or the Spirit, or love, or whatever word you might use, settles in. Or perhaps you've faced a huge decision in your life, and you don't know what to do. And then a sense of peace washes over you, and you just know. You know what to do. Something in your stomach or your gut has moved, giving you clarity and understanding. So it seems that doubt easily sits up here. And that's perfect, because that's where we get to wonder together. That's where we get to consider things together. That's where we get to attempt to piece it together, make sense of it. That's where we can debate and disagree with each other, all in this headspace, right? But belief and faith sit someplace else usually. Clayton Schmidt puts it this way: faith is a mystery of the heart that the mind wants to solve. To admit that we take certain things on faith is to say that we are willing, in limited circumstances, for things to not make perfect sense. So it's faith and belief, I think, that keep us coming back here to this community over and over and over again as we strive to follow Jesus. It's what has us telling story after story over and over and over again when we can't quite wrap our minds and heads around it, but our gut tells us there is something to this story that connects us, that draws us together, that draws us in. So while the story might not always make head sense, there's something else to it. And I suspect that the truth lies in Jesus saying, "Peace be with you." In the midst of daily stress, worry, that news feed that just never stops with all the horrible news, medical diagnosis, we need to hear over and over Jesus declaring, "Peace be with you." In the midst of financial worry, job stress, grief, we need to hear Jesus whispering to us, "Peace be with you," over and over again. That feeling that comes over us and dwells with us in our stomachs and in our guts, that we can believe. That we can cling to, because that is real. And we know where we go from here too, because Jesus in this story tells us, "As the Father sent me, so I am sending you." Friends, we are sent to work for peace because Jesus is the bringer of peace. We are sent to love because Jesus taught us to love. We are sent to welcome the child, the outcast, the one on the margins, because Jesus tells us, teaches us, shows us to do that. Our heads can wonder and debate and get our heads all twisted up around these resurrection stories, but we sit here today because of these stories. We sit here today because, starting with Thomas and the rest of Jesus' closest friends, they made sure that the stories of Jesus were told over and over again. We can sit here today full of ants in the pants of doubt. That's perfectly good. And hopefully a clear stomach and gut sense of the peace that Jesus brings us. And when the time comes for us to leave this space, we're going to leave with a clear sense of our instructions to go and to bring that peace, to go and to share that love. May it be so. Amen.